Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Bengal Tiger Recruiting Podcast. I am Billy Embody. With me, Shea Dixon, as always. Shea, it's been a minute. There's been a lot of travel going on 3 Elite Series, official visit season. It's been a little bit since we've had one of these podcasts, but what perfect time to start than camp season for LSU. You and Matthew were out there on the Ponderosa watching everybody compete with Brian Kelly's staff. What were your early takeaways? We're going to start off with one of the big offers to go out this summer, and that is to Destrehan athlete Jace Thomas.
Yeah, that was the 2025 offer they handed out, and being in Louisiana, obviously pretty notable. We had been expecting this one, right, Billy? I mean, he had been the guy who had emerged as the safety target for them in Louisiana for Jake Olson, the first-year safeties coach. And it was really just about coming to camp. And how camp's set up is they'll check in and then, you stretch or whatever. And then you do your testing. So you 40 and vertical and broad jump, all that. Then you go out to individual drills and then obviously 7-on-7 and 1-on-1 work. He probably made it through halfway of the testing portion before Brian Kelly pulled him aside and said, all right, we've seen enough. You've got the offer. Ran in the 4.4. Kind of high 4.4 range, but that's speedy. 4.5 even would be speedy for a safety. 6'1", 175. I thought he looked good out there. And for me, Billy, it comes down to this. You just signed 2 kids at safety who are very good players, 4 stars in Joel Rogers and Deshaun McBride, 2 local kids. Next year, Baton Rouge has the number 1 safety in the country. In Blaine Bradford at Catholic. Aiden Hall's one of the top 5 safeties in the country over in the city at Edna Carr, and we'll certainly see others pop up. So it's kind of like, where do you go in a year sandwich between 2 really elite classes? And I figured that in-state, it would be a guy like Jace Thomas. Now, this weekend, they do have the number 1 safety in the country on campus for an OV official visit in Jonah Williams out of Galveston, Texas. They have CJ Jim Coyley, another safety out of Tennessee that they've been after, coming in for an official visit this weekend, but no commitments yet. I think Jace Thomas will change that. So that's why I put in my On3 RPM pick. Destrehan kids usually stay home when LSU wants them, and now the offer's on the table.
Yeah, I really like Jace Thomas. I think, one, he's one of the more well-spoken prospects in Louisiana. If you're watching on YouTube there's a highlight from his spring game that found on Twitter. But he's been really, I think not pushing himself is the wrong word, but being around LSU. I mean, he's probably been on campus 6 times this spring just to take unofficial visits, hang out. He was with Jabori Antoine on campus last month and I think even maybe this month too. So there are 2 guys that are close in this class. And I would expect Jace Thomas to jump on board just like you. And LSU's done a really nice job here, getting him around the program, getting him into a position where he wanted to come camp. He expected to get good news. Jake Olson went out for his spring game and watched him as well. So they've done their due diligence on him, and he backed it up with really nice testing. And I think this is an offer that makes a ton of sense for all those reasons that you listed off. And LSU considered the team to beat now. It was maybe Ole Miss, but the Tigers are not going to maybe flip Jace Thomas from Ole Miss like they did with a couple guys last cycle. They're just going to maybe take this one straight up before he gets to decision time.
Yeah, he hadn't announced yet. So again, look, Justin Jefferson lands a massive deal, biggest for a non-quarterback in NFL history a week ago. In that same span, John Emery's coming back. They just signed Kalaj Cobbins. What do they all have in common? They all went to Destrehan. So I would think that this is one that they can keep home. And I like the addition. Y'all know me. I go for Louisiana skill players and East Texas skill players. Give me all that you got. And I think Thomas fits the bill.
Yeah, good move offering there. And so we'll be tracking that one very closely now. In Louisiana, there are some guys who are maybe right around that stage where maybe LSU makes the move. They've had some notable local guys on campus lately. Frizzell Shepard was one that worked out on Thursday night. They've had some others that have come through. Aiden Anding from Ruston has not come through just yet. There's still one more camp next weekend, so maybe he swings through then. But as of now, The one offer from camp for a Louisiana prospect is Jace Thomas, but they did dish out a notable offer really to kick off June, and that was to Rashard Sterling out of Letcher, who did work out at the offensive line, defensive line camp earlier this summer. Shea, this is a guy that has been on the radar for quite some time. I think you and maybe myself have both had him in class predictions before he picked up the offer. We've not logged on 3 RPM picks for him just yet, but physically, I think he really fits the mold of maybe like a strong side defensive end, one of those guys that you could see bulking up and playing in that maybe 260 range, 270 range. He's just got a big body, and just seeing some videos of Frank Wilson and Kevin People stopping out at Letcher. I mean, he checks the box physically for LSU. So the offer maybe was a little bit of a long time coming, but finally came. He is committed to Houston. He's back on campus for his official visit this weekend. This is one to track now, maybe into the fall, depending on if they do get him on campus for an official visit next weekend.
Yeah, to specify, back on campus at Houston for his official visit. Yes. The connection there, obviously, being Willie Fritz, that Tulane staff that made the move over there, is still going to recruit Louisiana. This is a Letcher kid, as you noted. So they got his commitment before LSU offered. Now, how much does the offer shake things up? For me, he's almost like Jace Thomas. I think he's going to end up at LSU. I don't think that for as good of a staff as Willie Fritz is a head coach and the staff he's got at Houston, I think it's going to be tough for them to hold on to a kid from the River Parishes that has an LSU offer that will be pressed by the staff, because he came to camp earlier this summer and tested well, measured very well, and that's when the offer got handed out. So that whole part is behind him. He would be a take if he wanted to commit, flip his commitment from Houston to LSU. As you noted, I don't think we have on 3 RPM picks in here. In fact, we don't. But it won't surprise me if we both log one at some point. I do think that Sterling ends up in the class as an edge rusher. Damian Shanklin is out there with LSU as the on 3 RPM leader, a top 100 player coming out of Indianapolis as an edge rusher. And then you put those two together, maybe one more. Jesse Harold is on campus this weekend. He's a guy we're keeping an eye on as a top 100 prospect and edge rusher. Kevin Peoples, is obviously going to feel things out, being LSU's defensive ends coach and stand-up linebackers, however you want to define that position. But he got here from Missouri with Blake Baker, feel it all out, see what the board is, and then over the summer it starts to come together. No surprise. I think it's the same pretty much with the D-line. We've seen it happen with Bo Davis's guys, Corey Raymond at corner, and then Jake Olson at safety. All these guys have put their board together over the spring, his first time being here, at least back for Raymond and the others on staff. I think that Sterling eventually ends up in the class, but I don't know when. I don't know. Like you said, could it play into the fall? Maybe. I bet he comes to the Bayou Splash. Maybe we see something happen there. For all we know, next weekend, he could get added to the LSU official visitor list. It's not something they normally do. They save all the Louisiana kids for December, but I do think that that's one we have to keep firmly on the watch list of guys. As you said, when we were doing our class predictions, even most recently, he was in both of ours. So I'm sticking with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got him on alerts. So it's kind of what you do with Louisiana prospects when they pick up an LSU offer, if they're going into their senior years in particular. And he is, and kudos to Willie Fritz and the staff, and both of us know a lot of the guys that ended up going over there to Houston with Willie. But he's on campus recruiting for Houston, so LSU's got to get him back and maybe around the staff a little bit more to accelerate that process. But yeah, I'm with you. I think maybe long term he does end up in this class over at LSU. So we'll be keeping an eye on him. And Shea, I've got to highlight a 2026 prospect here, and I didn't get to see him at LSU camp, but the film on Lamar Brown, and it makes sense, 5-star prospect on on LSU's campus going to U High. He is on an absolute tear in the camp circuit this summer, whether he ends up going to camps at defensive line, offensive line. We've got him as an offensive lineman, and I think that's his best position. From what I've seen, he's able to lock up some of these guys that come to camps and just really manhandles them. And I like his frame, maybe best to be an offensive lineman too, in a way. I mean, I think this could I think Lamar Brown could challenge for the number 1 spot in the 2026 class. I really do. Overall.
That's bold. That's bold. I like him. It'll be interesting. I was talking to Cody Belair about this, one of our On3 rankings. Him and Charles Power do the rankings for us, and leading that rankings team and recruiting. Sorry, jumbling my words. Lamar there, though, as you noted, so he worked out at D-line first, then O-line. So both Bo Davis and Brad Davis got to see him and work him out. He runs with the receivers at practice at U High. Again, 6'3.5", 255. You can kind of go either way here, and college coaches will fight, certainly at LSU, about which side of the ball he should be on. Regardless, he's elite. But Cody said that they're thinking about maybe ranking him as an athlete. He would be ranked as the number 1 athlete, probably, obviously. But I said, how often to O-line, D-line does that happen? And he said only once since they've Cody's come on board. So it's been a couple of years now, at least 2 or 3 cycles. So I guess that just speaks to how rare a guy like Lamar Brown is at that size, where you can play O-line or D-line at any college you choose. And they would say, yes, we want your commitment. It'll be interesting to see it play out, but an early 5-star as part of a deep 2026 class in Louisiana. Kids are popping up every day that are now grabbing offers. So guys like Jakeem Stewart, Lamar Brown, Bradford, they all headline it. But there is some intrigue if Bradford turns into being ranked as an athlete, because I don't think we can pick out which side of the ball you would rank him on, because I think it can still go either way for college. Yeah. And this is why LSU fans are screaming right now. Can he be a D tackle? Can he be a D tackle? Yeah. And so, yeah.
Well, maybe if you sign Lamar Brown, you're looking at, I think an instant impact offensive lineman. I think that's where Brad Davis would love to maybe fight Bo Davis over that one. It's a little bit harder, as we've seen, for defensive tackles to be that instant impact guy. But the offensive lineman, like we've seen with guys like Will Campbell, Emory Jones, they can step in and play right away a little bit easier when you're coached up by Brad Davis, it appears. So we'll see how that one goes. But Shea, let's flip over to the quarterbacks here, and one in-state guy, one out-of-state guy, but both were on campus Thursday evening and throwing. And kudos to Joe Sloan. He continues to bring in top arms and not only gets them on campus, but gets them to throw. And some of these quarterbacks don't want to do that when they're highly touted. But Joe Sloan did have Dia Bell, a familiar name for LSU recruiting fans, on campus Thursday night. He was throwing. And what were your impressions on Dia Bell?
Yeah, the son of a former NBA, longtime NBA player, Rashard Bell, coming out of American Heritage. You've seen him play in person. You went down and watched him when he faced off against Colin Hurley, who's now on campus as a true freshman quarterback at LSU. Young, I think Dia's throwing it like every school he goes to, which speaks to just the competitiveness in him, and no shocker given he grew up in a household where his dad played in the NBA. But you could see his a little bit, arm was getting a little bit tired, but still worked right through it all the way to the end. Looked sharp. I thought that he's a guy that will continue to get better and better. Like, you look at a Bryce Underwood, and he's very refined at this age. I think Dia Bell's a guy who's got a lot of upside left. Even watching earlier in the week, other quarterbacks come through and throw. I think that Bell's upside is probably what coaches really are falling in love with, because you can continue to teach a lot of it. And Joe Sloan was all over him during kind of the 7-on-7 period and 1-on-1s, every throw about mechanics, footwork, everything else. So coaching him up well out there. They will continue to be pursuing him. It's been a hell of a week with quarterbacks, because they had Brady Hart in, a top 10 quarterback, earlier this week. Then they had Dia Bell in for 2 days. He camped. Now this weekend they'll have Faison Brandon and Dia Bell on On3 is the number 2 quarterback. Faison Brandon's the number 1. So in the span of like 5 days, they'll have 3 of the top 10 quarterbacks in the country on campus for 2026. And I went through and counted it. I think 7 of the top 10 right now on On3 quarterbacks for next year have visited LSU in the past 3 months, like at some point this spring or summer. And people will say, Billy, who's going to follow in the footsteps of Bryce Underwood? Who wants to be the guy right after Bryce Underwood? And I have to remind LSU fans, myself included, and others who follow the program, these kids are like Bell, Faison Brandon, the number 1 and 2 quarterbacks in the country. They're 15 years old, 16 years old. They're about to be juniors in high school. Their knowledge of LSU football is Joe Burrow winning a Heisman, undefeated season, Jaden Daniels winning a Heisman. Oh, and that LSU just had the number 1 offense in college football this past season. We think of it as, why would these kids be wanting to follow a Bryce Underwood? They're seeing it as like, oh my gosh, I've got an LSU offer. Why wouldn't I go there and camp and try to see if I'm the guy that they choose? We are so far from the less years of kind of no quarterbacks rolling through. Wonder, you get the Ryan Perrilloux 5-star, and it's like a game changer for the program. To be sitting on a commitment from Bryce Underwood and him being solid as the number 1 overall prospect and not visiting anywhere else has allowed Sloan to now say, all right, let's turn it to 2026 and go after these guys. And I don't think any of them, well, that's probably a lie. Some of them don't want to follow Bryce Underwood, and I get it, but I think they're going to come away with a notable quarterback in this class. I just feel like the odds are in their favor for it with how many guys they've gotten to campus.
Look, Les Miles brought in Danny Etling, okay? Didn't he? Right? I think
he's good, right, but he is a good quarterback, and he made it to the NFL. So
he is a good quarterback.
He was also a transfer, though. He wasn't. He's also a transfer.
Joe Burrow was transferred.
These guys weren't high school kids coming into LSU as the number 1 quarterback.
I just want to shout out Danny Etling. He's a good quarterback.
Well, he got a shot, and yes, it's true. He is a good quarterback.
Yep. So the lineage of LSU's quarterback run goes back before Joe Burrow is the point. But Malachi Ziegler is another one that is continuing the lineage of some high-profile 2027 quarterbacks in Louisiana. He was on campus Thursday to throw. What were your impressions of him as the Benton standout got on campus to work out with Joe Sloan? He's really probably, in terms of the 3 that everybody talks about in Louisiana, you've got Peyton Houston, you've got Elijah Haven, but Malachi Ziegler is probably, quote unquote, the hottest one out of that trio right now.
Yeah, I'll put Haven up there too, though. Haven's a beast.
Just in terms of offers.
Sure. Ziegler, I had known and watched plenty of Peyton Houston and have seen Elijah Haven in person a number of times, but everyone around Benton kept saying, wait till y'all see Malachi Ziegler. Wait till you see Malachi Ziegler. First off, it's rare. Like, these are 2027 prospects. That means they're about to be sophomores. Not many kids start as freshmen at quarterback in high school, and a handful did in Louisiana this past year. So now we're able to talk about them. Most kids aren't starting until their sophomore years, maybe even junior year. But Ziegler got in early at Benton, and boy, he is all of 6'3", probably in that 190 to 200 range safely. And when you see him out there, if you didn't know he was about to be a sophomore, you would think he was part of the rising seniors of guys out there in the 2025 class, just filled out. And on film, he can run it, but he can also sling it. And look, he's coming out of his freshman year. He's not perfect. He made some good throws and bad throws, and that's expected. But Joe Sloan coaching him up out there a good bit, and toss in, Luke Fahey, a 2026 out of Mission Viejo. Coming in from California, was another quarterback of note that was there. But I really liked Ziegler as a guy who we have to now put firmly on the radar moving forward. And time flies. So, in a couple of years, these kids will all be seniors, and we'll look up. And I bet that we'll be looking at a Louisiana class. It's got at least 3 top 100 prospects at quarterback, which we've kind of never happens. We saw the Arch Manning, Eli Holstein wave come through, but again, even dating back to like Ryan Perrilloux, that was the only other 5-star, unless I'm skipping somebody in my mind coming out of high school. But that class will be special. And I used to always say Louisiana kids would put all their best athletes at quarterback so that the state just didn't turn out a lot of big-time quarterbacks, but that won't be the case for 2027. They've got at least 3 really good ones in the state.
Yeah, and LSU also had Weston Nielsen out of Bastrop, Texas, another highly touted 2027 quarterback throwing on Thursday. Him and his teammate, Case Benoit, were on campus to take in some work with the Tigers. And then another highly touted Texan was on campus, though, to work out with Frank Wilson. Tadarian Bell, top 100 prospect on all 4 ranking services, picked up an offer from the Tigers. This is a like I said, consensus top 100 prospect, one of the more productive players in the country at the running back position last year. Now has an LSU offer. Really looked the part from what it seemed like on all the tape that I was able to watch on Twitter. You were there. You saw him, picked up the offer. He raved about it after the fact. What were your impressions of Tadarian Bell?
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, and again, the Bengal Tiger YouTube page, which we should also give a shout out here. Look, go to it, hit subscribe, but also for the YouTube listeners, we do have our offer, our special offer, 2 months for $1. If you use the promo code, Billy, do you know the promo code?
LSU1. That's LSU, the number one, for the number one overall prospect, Bryce Underwood.
So we're cheating. You can actually be listening to this on something else and not on YouTube, and you just got the promo deal. But if you're not signed up for the Bengal Tiger, we have so much on the site right now. The board's been on fire. Everyone's talking recruiting as LSU battles Ohio State for the number one class. But yes, just go to the Bengal Tiger, go to On3 and search for the LSU page and get to the Bengal Tiger and sign up. You get 2 months for $1. So that'll carry you into fall camp for $1. So do us a favor, get to the YouTube page and subscribe. But if you're a Tiger fan who wants a little bit more and you've got $1 to spare, we'd love it if you come and join the family. But scroll down on Tadarian Bell. This is how I'll sum up yesterday's camp performance. Go to his offers, click, all teams. So I was checking him out before I went, and I said, oh, he's a top 5 running back. And I said, what offers does he have? I scroll down, and I keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Then I had to hit page 2. I guess he has probably more than 40 college offers, or 30 college offers, and he is only about to be a junior. But LSU wasn't on the list. And I said, well, this speaks to Frank Wilson. He's not offering you, if you're not from Louisiana, you better come in here and show out at camp. And Tadarian Bell came in and he was elite. And it was not a surprise at all that he left with an offer. They jump into the mix. We'll see. They've got some connections at his high school that at least have some LSU folks around him, but obviously coaches aren't going to push a kid any which way. The Texas schools are going to be fighting over him, but a name to watch for next year because we know they're probably done at running back right now with Harlan Berry and JT Lindsay for this 2025 class. So much like Joe Sloan at quarterback, time to move on. What's in the 2026 class? Frank Wilson handing out this offer. I can't remember either. If I could go look it up, I don't think he's offered any or many 26 running backs. So yes, Ball becomes one of the first, which is notable.
Yeah, really, really good player. Texas does have multiple On3 RPM picks in there, so that's why you see
Buzzkill.
But he did. Frank Wilson did offer Tyree Green, a running back out of Marietta, Georgia. It goes to Kell High School, a 4-star prospect. So this becomes the second 2026 running back offer. I'll have
to look up that offer and see if that's even legit.
I know.
It's rare that you see the running back offers go out. That's how good Ball was, though. Like he came in and he earned it. It was a no doubter.
Yeah. So good offer there. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see what Louisiana produces in 2026 as well. I'm sure we can get some folks in the comments letting us know who to keep an eye on out there as LSU continues to dish out some offers. Next Friday is the Friday Night Lights camp, so maybe some new offers out there as well to watch. But Shea, that kind of wraps up the camp rundown so far. But before we go any further, guys, we got to remind you guys about our friends at My Perfect Franchise. Andy Ludicky is there for you if you want to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream, or you're looking for that side hustle while working your current job, or you're wanting to diversify or build wealth for your family. Andy Ludicky and his team at myperfectfranchise.net are there for you. His services are 100% free, and he's here to help you if you have any questions about business ownership. He's a franchise owner himself, and he helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, financial requirements, time to commit, and more. You can reach out to Andy at Andy, A-N-D-Y, at myperfectfranchise.net, or give him a call, 404-973-9901. He'll jump on a phone with you, Zoom, whatever, and talk about the trends in franchise ownership, what's working, what's not, what's cooling off in the franchise market, and find the right fit for you. So reach out to our friend Andy Ludicky at myperfectfranchise.net. Shea, it is official visit season. We are right in the thick of it. Another banner weekend for LSU. The Tigers are set to welcome 11 official visitors to campus. Couple commitments will be back in town, and a flip target as well. On top of that, a 5-star prospect will be on campus. This list is impressive, and all guys that you and I were talking about beforehand. I'm working on a piece to kind of set the stage on top of what Shea posted at the Bengal Tiger as far as the visitor list goes. But this is a group that you can feel really good about LSU's chances, at least in their recruitments. Like, they're not coming in, maybe sitting in the 5-hole and they need to have an incredible weekend to even get in the mix. These are all guys that, at least on paper, LSU is sitting in a good spot for going into the weekend.
Yeah, they started this week, I think, with 15 or 16 guys on the visitor list of guys who'd said at some point they were coming, and we knew they'd trim it down some to guys that they were really targeting, and they've settled in on 11. We can kind of jump around here, Billy, but kind of do a little quick hit on each guy if you'd like to. Jonah Williams, number one safety in the country. He was ranked as a linebacker at one point, but he wants to play safety in college. That's where everybody's recruiting him. Oklahoma took the early lead. I didn't hang out with him. I interviewed him. We weren't kicking it at the On3 Elite series, and I didn't get the sense Oklahoma was going to be the team that gets him. I know he's got Oregon visit to come. Ohio State was kicking the tires to see if they could get in the mix, but I keep thinking for a Galveston kid like south of Houston that this one's going to come down to LSU and A&M, not just because of distance, but because of what he wants to do in college, which is play football and baseball. So he is a two-sport athlete. He is good at baseball. It's not just like a throwaway thing that would never happen. And we've seen it happen before. Look, LSU has had plenty of guys do both. And there's probably two sports that you can actually really play both in college. And it's either running track and playing football or playing baseball and playing football, because the two seasons don't really cross over beyond spring ball on the football side. But let's see. Jay Johnson will obviously, and staff will be here this weekend to play a role in the visit. But Jake Olson, Blake Baker, the DC, this defensive staff has put in a ton of work on him. And the A&M visit happened this past weekend, Billy, like not this one coming up, but a week ago. And now LSU gets to follow it up with their visit. We didn't hear a ton coming out of the A&M visit. I think the Aggies have a great shot at him, but we didn't hear a lot. So Jonah's kind of keeping things close to the vest. We'll see where things go. But getting a 5-star and the number 11 overall player in the country, regardless of position, who is also a very good baseball player, is a pretty big deal. And I actually think LSU's in this one. Do I think they get him? I don't know, but I think this weekend will be key in maybe taking a lead or at least surging kind of up the board.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I'm watching A&M in this recruitment. I know the On3 RPM reflects Oklahoma. I think this is honestly shaping up to be more of an LSU A&M battle for Jonah Williams, who's, really impressive prospect. I think for LSU to really make a move here, they're going to have to find a way to get him to completely buy into the fact that he can have a true shot on the baseball diamond as well as the football field, which is something that's worth noting. But Blake Baker's high school coach is the head coach of Galveston Ball. That's a great connection to have. On the flip side of things, Mike Evans went to Galveston Ball. He's a diehard A&M supporter in that regard. This is going to be a tough recruitment to overcome in that regard, because kids that go through ball, they look up to Mike Evans. It's kind of like who's the kid that LSU offered from Nick Chubb's high school maybe this cycle a couple years ago, and he had a great visit at LSU. He was really high on the Tigers and the coaching staff, but you got to remind people sometimes that is, what they're kind of grown up with in that regard. So that's what LSU is going to have to overcome. Yeah, it was Cedartown. It was the defensive back that ended up going to Georgia, Tay Harris. He was the one that really had a good LSU visit, but that's kind of where LSU is going to have to overcome here. I think Blake Baker's done a really good job prioritizing him, letting him know he can play safety at LSU, and he's going to get that fair shot. Although I think Jonah Williams could play kind of all over. He could play linebacker. He could play safety. He's tested well enough. if there's a guy that, in terms of my personal rankings of who LSU needs the most this visit weekend, especially on the defensive side of the ball, I'd probably go Jonah Williams, and then I'd go CJ Wiley, the wide receiver. For LSU, I know they signed a good safety class last year, but Jonah's that good of an athlete, and it would be a big statement in the I-10 corridor there.
So he's the headliner. 11 total kids, 1 5-star. The other 10 are all 4 stars, Billy. And I guess we can kind of, like I said, quickly roll through this. 3 O-linemen coming in, 1 committed, Tyler Miller. I think that's a big deal because not only on 3 is he a top 50 prospect and one of the best interior offensive linemen in America, but as a committed LSU guy out of Laurel, which is outside of Hattiesburg, so South Mississippi, he made an Ole Miss official visit this past weekend. So for LSU to be able to get him and his family to town now to follow up that visit is big. It kind of probably will help them kind of clear the air and answer any questions they kind of have, or any momentum Ole Miss could have gained. You can kind of negate with this visit. But it'll be interesting to see Carius Kern, the number 1 offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman, on 3 will be back on campus this weekend. There was buzz that he might not make the visit after he visited Arkansas this past weekend. He had been committed to the Razorbacks as an in-state guy. He is the number 1 player in Arkansas, but the last time he was on LSU's campus, 24 hours later, he decommitted from Arkansas. This time he's going to be on LSU's campus, and then on the 19th, we'll announce his commitment. So we both got, I believe we both do, I know I do, have On3 RPM picks in for LSU from back when he decommitted. Let's see if we can get through this weekend and not move those picks, because that would be a massive land for Brad Davis. We mentioned Tyler Miller, and then the other one is an offensive tackle in Mario Nash coming out of Mississippi. So Brad Davis has 3 O-linemen committed, Billy. Obviously, Micah DeBose came earlier for an OV this summer. Solomon Thomas, a 5-star, is committed to Florida State, came on an official visit. But this is a nice group coming this weekend with 1 commitment and then 2 more guys who have offers and that they've still been courting pretty heavily.
I completely agree. And I mean, Brad Davis, we almost don't have to spend much time on because he's
that guy.
He's the coworker that you just never have to have people check in on or anything, because you just know he's working like he's going to get fired the next day, and he's producing. Like he is always recruiting like his back's against the wall, especially like we saw last cycle, picking up Weston Davis and guys like that. So one guy that LSU fans would love to see in this class, but I don't know if they can get it done, but they put in a ton of work to get him on campus. Jordan Crawford, the 4-star Auburn commit right there out of Birmingham, Alabama. LSU sent its entire defensive staff to Parker High School the day they went through Birmingham. For those that don't know, the recruiting rules did change. They can send as many coaches as they want to high schools, but you only get 1 visit during the spring evaluation period. And LSU did kind of a blitz of Alabama for a couple days, but one of the high schools that they sent the entire staff to was Jordan Crawford's high school. Bo Davis has recruited him for a while. Blake Baker, Corey Raymond have recruited guys there. Jake Olson, they've been recruiting Naheem Alford, the 5-star defensive back. They're also recruiting Timothy Merritt, another defensive back. But Jordan Crawford is the one that right now has that official visit lined up to LSU. He's a big target. Bo Davis is kind of, I would say, in Brad Davis territory early in his tenure, where he brought in numerous offensive linemen, and he ended up landing some. He ended up not landing others, but all of them were highly thought of, highly recruited guys. This is a prime example of that, and we'll see if LSU can move the needle. Jordan Crawford's been somebody they've been on for a while, but going a little farther east is another prospect that we've got to highlight for this weekend when talking about it as we flip over to the offensive side of the ball, and that is CJ Wiley. And I believe in your latest class prediction piece, you had CJ Wiley in there.
Yeah, that was bold. That was going. Let's see what happens this weekend.
But it might not have been, and people might freak out when I say this, it might not be as bold as having like a Kalik Lockett in there. I know Kalik Lockett had LSU as his favorite. We knew that. But CJ Wiley going into the summer might be taking a more measured approach when it comes to his recruitment in terms of letting everyone make their pitches. His dad's an LSU alum and played at LSU. They've worked a lot to get into this position. And Chad Simmons dropped by on the board and said, look, I know they on 3 RPM is leaning Georgia, and it will be tough to get him out of Milton, Georgia. But LSU's got a shot here, and they're going to give them their full attention this weekend. So it seems like it's almost like you have Cleek Lockett, which has gone a bunch of different ways at certain points of his recruitment. But CJ Wiley, it's just kind of been quiet, and he's now going through his visits, and we'll see where he goes.
Let's not forget, his father is Chuck Wiley, an All-American defensive lineman out of LSU. Many LSU fans watched Chuck play for his years in college, and now his son, CJ, going through the process as a nearly 6'4", 210-pound rising senior playing receiver. So a bit of a jumbo receiver. He's a lot bigger of a kid than the Jamie Frenches, of the number of the other receivers that they've been recruiting, even Dakorien Moore, guys like that. So this is your jumbo receiver, if you like to kind of categorize into different slots how these receivers are. But I'm curious. I think it's LSU or Georgia, and he's growing up, even though his dad went to LSU. He's growing up in Georgia. He goes to Milton. Kirby Smart and them have been on him heavily. He was at Georgia for his official visit a week ago. And again, now LSU gets to follow that up with their official visit, and we'll see how things go from there. But Chad Simmons, our national recruiting analyst at On3, while CJ Wiley's got a million offers and a ton of visits that he's already done and unofficial visits as well, he said that being in Georgia, the rumblings he's hearing is this will be an LSU or Georgia decision when it comes down to it. So this weekend will tell us a lot there, I think.
No question. And guys that will have to potentially lock up CJ Wiley in practice if LSU were to get him. A couple of those guys coming on campus that LSU's recruiting are a trio, really. Cade Phillips, 4-star defensive back out of Texas. Onis Conanbani out of he's not from America, but came over and is now in Columbia, South Carolina, going to Heathwood Hall. And then a Nashville area prospect in CJ Jim Coyley, safety prospect. If you had to pick one of those guys that you'd feel good about, which one? Which one do you think LSU can make a move for?
I think they could make a move for all three. I think Conanbani, Florida State, made a big splash. Jim Coyley being from Tennessee, it'll be interesting to see kind of where the balls are at on that one, and if any other teams like Alabama or anyone start pressing that's a little more local. But again, LSU, a flight from Nashville to Baton Rouge or Nashville to New Orleans even isn't tough to do at all. We've done it plenty. So Jim Coyley quietly has been one of Jake Olson's top targets. I could see a Jim Coyley, Jace Thomas type class at safety. So I'd keep an eye on him. I don't know. I'm probably dumb for saying this because he's a Texas kid out of Missouri City and everybody wants him. But Corey Raymond is trying to revamp this corner room, and we can talk about, I feel great about DJ Pickett. They've got Jabari Antoine. We can talk about Dorian Brew and those guys all we want. He loves Cade Phillips, and he's ranked as a safety. He likes him at corner. That's where a lot of teams are recruiting him, and likes him, I would say, probably just as much as that top group. So I think this weekend is one where they're rolling out the red carpet in a big way for Phillips. And look, you're rebuilding that room. Conanbani as well. You mentioned him he grew up he was born in France, but he grew up in London. They're flying his dad and brother in from London for the visit. So they're obviously pretty interested there. I think that we talked about this earlier, Billy, when you were saying, I think I'm going to write up a piece on guys LSU could make a real move with this weekend. And we kind of made a case for all 11 of them. So I don't know, pick your spots. I think that this is a weekend where it's really intriguing because all of these guys have offers, but I think we look back, this might be one of those weekends where half of, like, that might sound bold, but like you could look back on signing day and be like, oh man, they signed like 4 or 5 guys from that weekend. And a lot of these guys are guys that people just haven't been talking about a ton, but the staff has been all over them, like Jim Coyley, like Cade Phillips, like even a Mario Nash type prospect who I think is going to maybe wind up at Mississippi State and just stay home. But I I think that the rumblings and once the dust settles from this weekend will be telling, because that first weekend that had double-digit guys seemed like it was like the Jamie French, Khalid Lockett. I think they had 5 5-stars in, Solomon Thomas, where it was just such a heavy hitter weekend. They've got a 5-star and 10 4-stars coming. It's not as like top heavy in terms of top 100 guys, but I think it's ripe with kids who could end up at LSU.
Yeah, agreed. It'll be a fun weekend. So jump on the BengalTiger.com for just $1. Gets you 2 months of coverage all the way into the Bayou Splash too. Most importantly, and into fall camp. So that's LSU1. LSU, the number 1 is the code when you go to the BengalTiger.com. Shea, we're not going to finish up with this prospect, but we need to talk about one of the top prospects in the country because we haven't really addressed this one on the recruiting podcast. 5-star plus wide receiver Dakorien Moore decommitted from LSU. We know that part of it. We know he's now trending to Texas on the On3 RPM. He's one of the best prospects in the country. LSU did get him on campus for an official visit last weekend, and he told me that LSU is back in the picture. They're not in the lead. They're not behind. They're just right there in the picture, and he's now got them among the 3 other programs, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, that he's considering. Kind of a weird deal. You were around him at On3 Elite Series. I think LSU fans would love to obviously get him back on board. I think he's been somebody that has been really interesting to try to read the tea leaves on, but LSU did get him back on campus for an official visit, and they were able to lay things out and worked really hard to put a best foot forward, and I think they did that.
Yeah, sandwiched in between 2 double-digit visitor weekends, Billy, was a visit weekend with only 1 official visitor in Dakorien Moore, and certainly speaks to kind of the attention they wanted to put on him. They got his mom, Marjan, and their whole family really in for that visit, and everyone that we talked to and sources that I really trust said, look, blew it away. LSU blew the visit away. There was a point where when he decommitted, he didn't even have an LSU visit on his list. And Frank Wilson, Cortez Hankton, Joe Sloan, they all went to Duncanville, talked to him and his mom, worked things out to where he would come back in. And the night before he got here, he was hanging out with Jamar Chase in Dallas, talking over his recruitment, and then spent a couple days in Baton Rouge, left. We've got interviews on the site where you can still check them out, where Billy caught up with his mom, Marjan, caught up with Dakorien, and even his mom said, hey, look, you can't deny the love they showed and the commitment they've shown, even with him backing off his verbal pledge. And people will say, well, he's going to end up at Texas, or why are we still going after him? Twofold here. 1, he's the best receiver in the country. It's not close. 2, the portal changes everything in that regard, because if a guy like Dakorien Moore hits the portal at some point and he doesn't go to LSU, when he hits the portal, the teams that are going to be in the mix are the ones who already have a built-in relationship. So if you just say, Dakorien, you decommitted, we're never talking to you again, that's not the route you go. You just keep going after him. Yes, you can do that with some kids. You don't do it with a 5-star who is this talented. And look, Billy, you're in Dallas. You know how good he is over at Duncanville. And they signed Caden Durham, his teammate, this past cycle. So they've got to win at Duncanville. It's tough to get in there as a team, out-of-state team, without connections to the school. They did it. And now they're going to keep swinging for Dakorien Moore. I don't know where he's going to go to college. I would guess Texas is probably still the team out front. He'll be there this weekend on his official visit. I don't think he shuts things down right now. I think he's going to let them play out a bit more. But I will add, he will be at the Bayou Splash in July. And that's when it all began. That's when him, Underwood, Barry, all those guys were there that weekend a year ago. And a month later, Dakorien committed. Then Underwood and Barry committed. They remain committed. Can they get back into it with even more with Underwood? I think that Bayou Splash weekend will be just as big as the official visit weekend was.
Oh, here we go. We will see how it all plays out with Dakorien Moore. But one guy that we don't need to see how it plays out. We kind of know how this one is going to end. And it seems like LSU will sign Bryce Underwood, the number 1 overall prospect in the country. And Shea, we say seems like because there always has to be a backdoor for any recruitment, but have you seen a more highly touted prospect be more locked in, especially one that's out of state?
No, not anyone who's this highly ranked. He's the number one player in the country, number 5-star plus. He's a 5-star on every site. When we were at the On3 Elite Series and guys were coming through to do interviews, it was funny because every guy came through and, he had offers from 4 or 5 schools or was getting ready to make all those official visits. And a reporter from On3 at each of those schools was there. And we all kind of rotated and did our interviews. And Bryce Underwood walked in and they were like, here's Bryce Underwood. And nobody was there to talk to him but me, because he has not spoken to any other colleges. He's not taking phone calls. He's not making visits. And if you go watch on the Bengal Tiger YouTube page, check it out. I did an interview with Bryce, and you can read the stories on the Bengal Tiger as well. But he talked about why commit if you're not ready to commit. I won't ever back out of that commitment. And I went back and listened to it again to transcribe it. And I texted y'all and was like, man, I have not heard a high school kid who is this well-spoken and measured with everything he's saying and knocks the interviews out of the park like he does in a long time. Then I look up and remember he's 16. He doesn't even turn 17 until August. He should really be in the grade behind in the 2026 class. He never reclassified, stuck with it. So not only is he the best quarterback out there and player out there, he's also a year younger than all of these kids and is still better than everyone. This is as Charles Power, who runs the On3 rankings, said when he committed, this is a program changer. He changes the trajectory of your program, even if you're an LSU and you're already a great, great established program. He can now take it to another level, not just with this play on the field, but I think you'll see with guys that they're ultimately recruiting. And that's why I'm kind of curious to see how this receiver board shakes out, because Bryce isn't going anywhere. They've got Harlem Berry, the number one running back. He's not going anywhere. So which receivers jump on board to play with those guys? It'll be interesting to see how this unfolds over the next 6 months.
No question about that. So couldn't have said it any better myself. For those who don't subscribe to BengalTiger.com, subscribe today. Subscribe to the Bengal Tiger YouTube channel, which continues to grow. Hope everybody has a great Father's Day weekend, and we will catch you guys next week with another edition of the Bengal Tiger Podcast. Shay, you got one more?
No, I was just deuces. Like later, y'all. Peace.
You were deucing.
That would be 2 more if I wanted to do anything more. But no, I have nothing left to say.
There we go. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will catch you guys next time on the Bengal Tiger Podcast. Thanks for listening.